Part 16. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 151. Zuyun thought for a moment and returned to the cave. All the books left by Sun Suanhua were placed on the stone shelf. At this time, he vaguely remembered that he had seen an explanation of soil for growing elixirs in a certain book. It was just that for a moment, he couldn't remember, but he would be unwilling to resolve the doubts in his heart at this moment. And if it is really because of the soil, it will be of greater help to him in providing resources for his future cultivation. After reading several books, Zuyun finally found the answer in a page of one of them. 11 Soil. 11 means growth, and 11 soil refers to soil that can grow and expand on its own. Zuyun remembered at this time that he dug some soil in a corner of the medicine garden and took it outside. The hole left behind was filled again at some point. But the strange thing is that the holes drilled by those elixirs have never been restored. In this case, it should be the relationship between those elixirs turning into essences. Zuyun thought about it, and after he was 90% sure that it was 11 soil, he put all his doubts behind and began to practice with concentration. Fen Tianyan was still sleeping soundly under the Taoist platform, but only after a while, Zuyun also saw that its size seemed to be a little larger, and it should have absorbed his spiritual power while sleeping. Nourish yourself. And at this time, a person in front of Master Zhu Yang said respectfully, "Senior, because something unexpected happened this time, I didn't prepare enough demon pills." If Zuyun or Sun Qiniang were here, they would definitely recognize that this person was the owner of Nanfang City at that time. Who would have thought that these two people would have secret transactions? You can't handle such a simple thing, so why do you think I'm keeping you here? Because of Zuyun's escape, Master Zhu Yang was in a very bad mood at this time, and looked at the owner of the workshop with cold eyes. "Senior, spare your life." The shop owner hurriedly knelt on the ground. The villain's shop was jointly attacked by the 36 caves and heavens in the sea. In addition, there was another female cultivator who came to harass from time to time. As a result, the villain's shop was not only attacked but destroyed, it is now occupied by those sea monks. Do those monks from the wild sea dare to come to land? Upon hearing this, Master Zhu Yang's eyes flashed. "Yes, senior. If it weren't for such a villain, this trip wouldn't be so difficult, and he would almost not be able to come back." The boss raised his head, his eyes full of prayer. "What a waste." Master Zhu Yang thought for a moment and said, "I have important matters to attend to, and I need to go back to Yaezhu as soon as possible. Since you are of no use staying here, just go to Zhuyang town with me." After realizing that he did not need to die, the boss felt like he was being pardoned, but he frowned and asked, "Who will monitor the wild sea?" Since the cave masters of the 36 caves have come ashore, the formation hidden in the sea will not be discovered by them. There is no point in you continuing to stay here. Master Zhu Yang shook his head, stood up and said, "Let's go." After saying that, he waved his hand and took the boss into the air, flying quickly forward. And under their feet is the Hongduan Mountains that separates Yonyeo and Yao prefectures. A few days later, Master Zhu Yang returned to Zhuyang town. After searching for days, no trace of Zuyun was found at all. Mu Qingxin looked confused and looked at her grandfather nervously. "I knew you couldn't find it." Master Zhu Yang did not blame him. Instead, he pointed at the shop owner behind him and said, "That boy is extremely cunning. Let him follow you to the secret realm when the time comes." The shop owner now knew that Master Zhu Yang had brought him here to go to Yaezhu's secret realm that had been opened for centuries, and he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Although he didn't know Mu Qingxin's identity, he could feel from Master Zhu Yang's tone that Mu Qingxin's status was completely different. "This ferry, I'm Zhao Kamang, is in the middle stage of foundation building." Master Zhu Yang said calmly, "He is my granddaughter. After going to the secret realm, everything will be under his command." Zhao Kamang's expression tightened and he agreed repeatedly. At this time, Master Zhu Yang took out a bottle of soul control pill and threw it away. This pill will help improve your spiritual power. Take one pill every day and try to reach the late stage of foundation building before the secret realm opens. Zhao Kamang thanked him repeatedly, and then he followed Master Zhu Yang's instructions, went to the room where Zhu Yun was, swallowed a pill, and started practicing. He didn't know that Master Zhu Yang had no intention of sparing him. Zhao Kamang knew too much and it was impossible to leave him alive, but Master Zhu Yang was just in time to employ people, so he took the opportunity to refine him into a puppet for Mu Qingxin to use in the secret realm. After sending Zhao Kamang away, Master Zhu Yang called Mu Qingxin over again and motioned for her to accompany him to the alchemy room. As soon as he opened the door, Master Zhu Yang's expression froze instantly. The high-end cauldron in the alchemy room is gone, and the room is empty. And the various shelves displayed on the walls of the house are also in a mess. The porcelain bottles for the elixirs and the wooden boxes for storing things were all gone. Damn it! Damn boy, you stole all my things. Glancing around the room, Master Zhu Yang's anger increased and burst out in an instant. Mu Qingxin didn't dare to express her anger. She even lowered her head and fiddled with the corners of her clothes nervously. After all, true man Zhu Yang was a Jindan true man. He knew that it was useless to vent his anger to anyone at this time. He just said to Mu Qingxin coldly, I have been preparing here for 100 years, just for the secret realm that is about to open. But now there is nothing. If there is nothing to gain from this secret realm. Mu Qingxin trembled all over, because he felt the murderous aura in the words that true man Zhu Yang had not finished speaking. I have found a new puppet for you now, don't make any more mistakes. After coldly warning Mu Qingxin, true man Zhu Yang directly closed the door of the alchemy room and even locked Mu Qingxin out. In addition to being afraid in her heart, Mu Qingxin still felt a little disappointed. She didn't know whether it was because of her grandfather's sudden change of face or because Zhu Yun left without saying goodbye, and even took away so many things. She returned to her room with a blank face, her thoughts flying, and she couldn't calm down for a long time. A few months passed, and 2 years had passed in Dao's glass mirror. Zhu Yun has been practicing with great concentration, constantly purifying his spiritual power, and has reached a state where he is about to break through the third level of foundation building. Calculating the time, he felt that the wind outside had passed, and it was time to come out. With a thought, he quickly flashed outside the mirror. The Hongduan Mountains are still sparsely populated. He stepped on the dead leaves that had accumulated for countless years, and the Zhuyang town in the distance was vaguely visible. They never thought that the place where I was hiding was not far from them. Now most people are going to that secret place, right? It's time to go to Yaluo Mountain to have a look. Zhu Yun muttered to himself for a few words, and ran along the Hongduan Mountains with the Changshengju for several days before he walked out of the mountains. But due to the misunderstanding caused before, he almost caused a fatal disaster, so he still did not rashly fly on the sword. But the speed of the body driven by the chaotic spiritual power was not slow. Zhu Yun soon saw a small market town with a prosperous population, so he planned to go in and inquire about the location of Yaluo Mountain. Just outside the market town, he found a group of qi refining cultivators gathered. From a distance, it seemed that they surrounded the two of them. All kinds of dirty words came from afar, which was unbearable to hear. As if they felt Zhu Yun's attention on them, these people shut their mouths one after another, as if they wanted to wait for Zhu Yun to leave before continuing their dirty deeds. Who knew that at this moment, one of the bullied people suddenly shouted angrily, "Atang, you go first." At the same time, a spiritual power rushed into the sky, but it was too weak for Zhu Yun to feel. Seeing that the cultivator took the opportunity to attack, the qi refining cultivators who surrounded them cursed and fought back. But the cultivator took the initiative and used a life and death move to completely gain the upper hand. For a while, 7 or 8 chi refining cultivators were helpless. A black shadow in the crowd danced wildly with his hands, stepping on a crude step, and there was a delicate woman beside him. But after all, 2 fists cannot beat 4 hands, and the woman was also a burden to the monk, and gradually fell behind, and was hit several times in succession. Zuyun stood there with a blank expression, watching. Seeing that one of the chi refining stages prepared a killing move and was about to use it on him, Zuyun finally moved. He took out his spirit sword, which was already a mid-grade magic weapon, and used it through the air. Dang! With a crisp sound, the killing move of the chi refining stage hit Zuyun's spirit sword, but his magic weapon was rebounded. The chi refining stage also spurted blood, obviously suffering from a lot of internal injuries. This sudden change made everyone stop fighting, and they all looked at Zuyun. "Benefactor, is it you?" At this time, Atang suddenly recognized Zuyun, with an unbelievable look in his eyes, and his voice was extremely trembling. Zuyun smiled and nodded. "Lao He, Atang, long time no see." "Little brother, no. It's the senior." Lao He finally recognized Zuyun, and he was incoherent. He didn't care that he was still surrounded by those chi refining stages, and he pulled Atang's hand and ran towards Zuyun. How dare those chi refining stages stop him? Zuyun, who was in the foundation establishment stage, was also an unrivaled existence in their eyes. Not to mention daring to stop him, they were even trembling at this time. "Lao He, how are you?" Zuyun smiled and said, "Don't you know that others don't know? I'm more used to hearing you call me little brother." Lao He showed an honest smile and touched the back of his head. "What's going on? You are not the kind of people who like to cause trouble, so why are you surrounded by them?" Zuyun did not reminisce with them, but glanced at the group of chi refining stages. Wherever his eyes went, these cultivators were all trembling with fear and fear. It's not that he likes to meddle in other people's business, but Zuyun got the third fragment of Deu glass mirror from Atang. And the alchemy room in this fragment even gave him a piece of heavenly fire. It can be said that this fairy fate was given by them. Hearing Zuyun's question, a look of horror flashed across Lao Hei's face, and he waved his hands repeatedly and said, it's okay, it's just a misunderstanding." Zuyun's face sank, and then he relaxed. It was obviously difficult to say, but since Lao Hei didn't want to say it, it was useless for him to force the question. He simply shouted in a deep voice, "Get out!" The group of monks fled in panic, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this time, Atang sighed and said softly, "Benefactor, let's go quickly, those people are not easy to mess with." Zuyun did not comment, he did not have to enter this market town. And now he met an acquaintance, he asked directly, "Do you know where Yaluo Mountain is?" After these words came out, the expressions of both of them changed drastically. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 152. Benefactor, what are you doing in Yaluo Mountain? Atang came back to his senses and asked quickly. Zuyun naturally couldn't tell him that he was going to find someone in Yaluo sect to avoid misunderstandings, so he smiled and said, "I made an appointment with a few friends to meet near Yaluo Mountain." Lao He looked strange and said, "Brother, almost all the monks in Yezu are going to Zilang Peak. Now that you are going to Yaluo Mountain, aren't you wasting a good opportunity to find immortality?" Atang also said, "Yes, my benefactor. Now the whole Yezu is in turmoil, and it is the time when the century-old secret realm is opened again. Even if you have made an appointment with your friends, you probably want to go treasure hunting, right? Why not try it out? There may be better harvests in the secret realm." Zuyun shook his head gently and said with a smile, "Don't you guys also want to go to the secret realm? But you are still in the chi refining stage, so you are too weak. If you encounter the foundation establishment stage inside, you may not find treasures. I can't come out safely. Lao He looked embarrassed, smiled, and touched his head without saying anything. Zuyun knew that Atang had always made the decision between the two of them, and he also deliberately did not want them to go to the secret realm. For Zuyun, if the safety cannot be completely assured, treasure hunting is tantamount to death. It's not that he is greedy for life and afraid of death. He certainly understands the principle of seeking wealth and wealth in danger, but he only has one life, and it is gone when he dies. He cultivated immortality to pursue immortality, not for pleasure and grudges. Especially after knowing that the medicine garden in the Dewu glazed mirror was buried with soil, the idea of exploring the secret realm became even less intense. Instead of looking for some 100-year-old elixirs, why not buy more elixirs and plant them? As long as you spend a little time, wouldn't it be easy to get century-old elixirs? In contrast, he is more willing to find the fragments of the Dewu glazed mirror, and he is more looking forward to what the scene will be like in this space after collecting all the fragments. Forget it, you should tell me where Yaloo Mountain is. Zuyun shook his head again and said with a smile. The reason why Atang and Lao He wanted Zuyun to go treasure hunting in the secret place was because they wanted to go with Zuyun to ensure their safety. But now Zuyun has obviously refused, so they have no choice but to give up. Atang said, my benefactor is going to Yaloo Mountain. It's a long way. We need to cross the Juhao Mountains first. The whole journey is about more than 10,000 miles. So far. Zuyun said in shock. Benefactor, we are currently in the southernmost part of Yeazhu, and Yaloo Mountain is in the far north of Yeazhu. It is equivalent to coming here from Yunzhou, which is naturally far away. Atang continued, however, to go to some larger market towns, you can take a flying boat. The speed is not slower than flying, and it is safer and more reliable, but... Just what? Zuyun asked. It's just that taking the flying boat requires some spiritual stones for expenses. If it is normal, the entire cost will be about 500 spiritual stones. But now that the secret realm is about to open, the cost has also risen. It is probably impossible without 1,000 spiritual stones. Atang thought it would be better to speak clearly first. So high? Zuyun's eyes suddenly widened. He didn't have many spirit stones on him, which was far from enough for the cost. He screamed in surprise and then looked embarrassed. Atang could see Zuyun's embarrassment at a glance, and after pondering for a while, he said to Lao He, Xiao He, we have accumulated a lot of spiritual stones over the years, why not give them to some benefactors? They are only in the qi refining stage, and their current cultivation level is only around the 10th level of qi refining. 500 spirit stones were a considerable amount for them, so Zuyun had no nerve to take them. He shook his head and refused, you still have to go to the secret realm. Keep this spirit stone with you for emergencies. If you pay for the flying boat for me, wouldn't it be a waste? Although I am anxious to go to Yaloo Mountain, I am not in a hurry. Benefactor, just take it. Atang took the storage bag containing the spirit stones from Lao He, stuffed it into Zuyun's hands and said, we don't need too many, or we should just treat them as lent to our benefactor. If we can return safely from the secret realm, when I have the chance to meet my benefactor again, how about he return these 500 souls to me? Zuyun didn't want to accept their kindness in vain, but whether he was going by flying boat or flying alone, the journey was long and the spirit stone was indeed an urgent need. He pondered for a long time and finally made a decision in his heart. In this way, let's go to Zilang Peak together first. When the secret realm opens, I will send you safely in, and then go to Yaloo Mountain alone to do business. How about that? The reason why I say this is because Zuyun is still thinking about the qi refining period that he just drove away, and there is no guarantee that he will come back to trouble Atang and Tang. Since the two of them were unwilling to tell the reason for the conflict just now, Zuyun. It was not difficult for Yun Bian to guess that those in the Qi refining period were people with backgrounds. Perhaps he is a disciple of some large sect, such as the Haori sect. It is better to escort them to Zilang Peak now, which will also bring him closer to Yaluo Mountain, and maybe save a lot of spiritual stones. After hearing this, both of them were overjoyed. They were Qi refining casual cultivators, and it was difficult to walk in the current environment. Just like what happened just now, it wasn't really a big deal. It was just those people in the Qi refining period who coveted Atang's beauty and teased her. And Lao He regards Atang as a treasure. How can he tolerate it? In a few words, there was a tit-for-tat confrontation, which almost led to a life-or-death disaster. Seeing that they agreed, Zuyun also smiled. The group of 3 people walked towards Zilang Peak. There are less than 2 months left before the secret realm opens. As they get closer to Zilang Peak, they also see more and more cultivators, some in the Qi refining stage in groups of 3 or 5, and some in the foundation establishment stage going alone. What's more, there are also Jindan stage cultivators driving flying boats to lead people there. Every time at this time, Zuyun would ask the 2 of them if they really wanted to go to the secret realm. But the answers they got were the same. They had never given up the idea of exploring the secret realm. Zuyun was also very helpless about this. But fortunately, the 2 of them also knew that Zuyun didn't want to explore the secret realm, so they didn't force it. It was precisely because he knew that they were like this that Zuyun would escort them there. Finally, they walked into the range of 100 miles from Zilang Peak. And with Zilang Peak as the center, all the towns within a radius of 50 miles were crowded with people. The world is bustling for profit, and the world is bustling for profit. Because today is the day when the secret realm opens. At midnight, when the moon is full and high in the sky, several light gates will open at the foot of Zilang Peak. As long as you enter the light gate, you will immediately reach the secret realm. At this moment, no one is fighting anymore, or they don't care about fighting. It is unwise to fight for a moment of courage and will, which is not as tempting as the secret realm. Not to mention those scattered cultivators meeting their enemies. Even the cultivators of Haori sect and Wanjian Mountain no longer fight for life and death. Benefactor, I am grateful for this trip. They did not stop in any market town, but continued to move forward. After seeing Zilang Peak from a distance, Atang opened his mouth to thank them. Lao He also said, I dare not waste your time any longer, brother. It seems that no one will bother us now. You should leave first. Zuyun smiled and said, since we are here, it doesn't matter if we spend half a day. I will leave only after I see you enter the secret realm. Besides, the cost of the flying boat at that time must be the cheapest. Atang chuckled, my benefactor, you are quite smart. I am afraid that the flying boat will be unmanned at that time, so it will wait here. Zuyun shrugged and said indifferently, at most, I can fly all the way there by myself. Anyway, I have these spirit stones in my hand, so I just spend more time on it. At this point, Atang and the others knew that they could not persuade Zuyun, so they turned their heads silently and continued to move towards the foot of Zilang Peak. At the same time, more than 10 miles to their east, De Go and Chen Hua, with Sun Qiniang, Huang Lei, Huang Meng, and the alchemist, a group of 6 people also slowly walked towards this side. They had been in that town for nearly half a year and were well prepared. Even the alchemist distributed the red blood pill to everyone, 1 bottle each. More than 10 miles behind Zuyun, Tru Manjuyang personally took Zhao Kamang and Mu Qingxin with him, and their target was naturally Zilang Peak. Tru Manjuyang had a gloomy face, and he had explained everything that needed to be explained. Zhao Kamang was also unknowingly refined into Mu Qingxin's puppet. However, Mu Qingxin did not use the puppet soul control technique on him, so Zhao Kamang did not know what his next situation would be. After Zuyun's escape, Mu Qingxin seemed to have become a different person. Expressionless, cold as ice. On the west side of Zilang Peak, the most eye-catching people were Menguia and Ergu. Although Menguia no longer had a stunning appearance after the disguise, the temperament and graceful figure exuded by his gestures always made people unable to help but take a second look. As for Ergu, since no one would recognize him, he didn't disguise himself, but the small braids woven with a unique technique swayed with his steps, making him stand out among the thousands of people. The most special thing is that Menguia is at the peak of the late foundation building stage, while Ergu is at the chi refining stage. The sun sets in the west and night falls. As the full moon rises from the east and slowly moves towards the sky, the foot of the entire Zilang Peak is densely packed with cultivators. In the air, dozens of Jindan stage cultivators are floating. There are those from Wanjian Mountain, Haori sect, and even those from large and small sects like Juyang Jinren. From a bird's eye view, thousands of cultivators are like ants, guarding Zilang Peak, and like devout pilgrims waiting for the opening of the Holy Land. The air is as silent as death. Until the full moon suddenly shines, countless white lights fall from the sky, covering the entire Zilang Peak. The secret realm is about to open. Someone in the crowd suddenly yelled, and everyone started moving. At this time, Zilang Peak was like a light source, projecting 10 circular light gates in all directions. In an instant, the monks who were closer to these light gates excitedly rushed into them, and their figures disappeared in the blink of an eye, obviously entering the secret realm. And the other monks near the light gates also squeezed towards the light gates. Screams, surprises, and roars were endless. Atang and Lao He were lucky, one of the light gates opened beside them. Just as Zuyun watched them enter, the mirror on his chest actually trembled violently. Zuyun was surprised and happy, which clearly meant that there were fragments of a glass mirror nearby. But before he could come to his senses, the situation suddenly changed. 10 light gates flew towards him out of thin air and merged into a huge light gate in front of him. For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Zuyun. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 153. These people are not only the monks at the foot of the mountain who want to enter the secret realm, but also the alchemy forming stages of the major forces hanging in mid-air. Before Zuyun could react, there was a sudden shout. 10,000 swords imprisoning demonic array. Everyone was shocked and looked up in the direction of the sound. They saw a middle-aged man in the Danja period holding out a long sword. The sword split into 2, then into 3, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into countless handles and shot towards Zuyun's surroundings. The power of the pill-forming stage was fully revealed at this time, and the faces of the monks at the foot of the mountain changed greatly, and they were filled with fear. Just because these swords formed a famous sword formation in Wanjian Mountain, Zuyun was trapped in it. And if they don't dodge, they will be hit by these swords, and they will suffer an unnecessary disaster. As the elders of Wanjian Mountain showed their power, the other sects in the alchemy stage also reacted one after another. 9 rounds of trapped immortal formation. It was the elders of the Haori sect who set up this formation. I want this person. Take the gourd of heaven and earth from me. Qingyun moment cover. For a time, these real people in the Dan formation stage unleashed their magical powers one after another, vowing not to give up until Zuyun is captured alive. Zuyun was shocked when he felt the overwhelming power coming from all directions. Little did he know that it was the sudden vision in front of him that made these pill-forming people want to catch him and find out what happened. At this critical moment, Zuyun's eyes turned cold, and he immediately made a decision in his heart, and rushed into the light door in front of him without hesitation. Boom. 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 Whether it was magic weapons to capture people or formations to trap people, all failed. The scattered spiritual power bombarded the light gate with a loud noise. One after another, endlessly. As for the light gate, it began to slowly shrink after Zuyun entered. Hurry up, or it'll be too late. The monks who had just stayed away to avoid being affected became impatient when they saw the light door shrinking, and began to squeeze towards the light door. The lucky ones managed to rush into the secret realm before the light door disappeared. The unlucky ones were not those who failed to catch up, but the monks whose bodies were cut in half the moment the light door disappeared. The gushing blood and the smell of blood filling the air finally brought everyone back to their senses. The monks who stayed outside were beating their chests and feet, only regretting that they were a step too late, and that all the years of preparation had come to an end. And those in the alchemy stage in mid-air looked left and right, seeming to have reached some kind of consensus silently, and flew towards the platform that was cut out after the battle at Zilang Peak 300 years ago. That kid must have a magic weapon related to the secret realm, otherwise how could he have such a strange phenomenon? I have never seen it before. The first person to speak was the elder Jian 15 of Wanjian Mountain who used the Wanjian demon prison array. His strength was in the late stage of pill formation and had not yet reached its peak. Master Zhu Yang spoke for the second time. He raised his brows and said with an inexplicable smile on his face, "Fellow Taoists, I'm sorry, that boy's name is Yunzu, and he is my grandson-in-law of Zhu Yang." "Master Zhu Yang, you said he is your grandson-in-law. Don't think I didn't see that when your granddaughter Mu Yetu entered the secret realm, she brought another male cultivator who is in the late stage of foundation building with her." A Jidan Kai who obviously knew the details of Master Zhu Yang immediately answered the call, which seemed to show that Master Zhu Yang was shameless. "He," a gloomy voice sounded, "Master Zhu Yang, you are indeed shameless, but I can feel it. Your granddaughter's foundation establishment stage seems to be subject to some kind of soul restriction. It must also be a kind of soul restriction. A way to refine a puppet." Master Zhu Yang's face changed. How could he expect that the puppet controlling soul technique he had secretly gained back then would be recognized by others? He couldn't help but turn around and saw that it was Elder Jinlun of the Magic Wheel sect. "Jinlun, I won't mention how shameless you are, but it's true that you have the heart of a bear and the guts of a leopard. We are all members of an upright sect like us, how dare you laugh at me even if you are so stern?" Elder Jinlun was only in the middle stage of pill formation, but he was not afraid at all when faced with Master Zhu Yang's aggressive rhetorical questions. I saw him laughing loudly at first, and then said with a ferocious smile, "I think you all know very well whether I have the courage or not. If anyone wants to use the excuse of slaying demons and defending the Tao, you might as well give it a try and see if I have the ability to bite the golden wheel. Here's a piece of your meat." As soon as these words came out, everyone except Master Zhu Yang took a step back. The reason why they landed on this platform was to find out the strangeness of Zuyun, not because of a dispute between spirits. Everyone knows the details of what is right and what is evil, and those are just lies to deceive all living beings in the world. The world of immortal cultivators is the same as the warriors in the mortal world. The strong are respected. The demonic wheel sect was defeated and retreated from the Juhao Mountains. It is just that the overall strength is not as good as the Haori sect, but it does not mean that Elder Jinlun has no power to fight back when fighting for life and death. Especially for a lonely person like Master Zhu Yang, he is the only one in the entire sect who is in the Dan formation stage. Elder Jinlun is not afraid at all, as if he has suppressed Master Zhu Yang's pain points. Facing such a tyrannical Elder Jinlun, Master Zhu Yang knew that he could not get any benefits. Even if he is 100% sure that he can kill Elder Jinlun on the spot, he will still consume a lot of money, and it is very likely that someone will take advantage of him. The Zhu Yang sect's ability to gain a foothold in Yeazhu is entirely due to the 9-turn 9-yang formation and his peak cultivation in the late stage of Dan formation, both of which are indispensable. In this regard, he could only take a step back and said loudly to everyone, "If you don't believe it, just wait until the secret realm is over. When he comes out, catch him and ask, and you will know." Master Zhu Yang said this because he had learned from Mu Qingxin that Zhu Yun came from Yunzhou. If he is surrounded by a group of people in the Danja stage, he must only know himself and can only obey himself. He believed that Zhu Yun was a smart man, but he ignored that everyone here was not stupid either. The person sent by the Heizong on this trip was Elder Chu. He first glanced at Elder Jinlun and then said calmly, "Zhu Yang, you said that he is your grandson-in-law without any basis. Can Chu also do the same? After he comes out, ask him if he is a close disciple of our Haori sect." These words resonated with everyone. Jian Shishi simply laughed and said, "That boy I got close to as soon as I saw him. He must be my long-lost son." Another person from the Danja period followed Jian Shishi's words and said, "The 15th elder is right on the way here. I promised the 15th elder that our sect will marry our eldest daughter to him and become the 15th elder, the elder's daughter-in-law. The dowry has been agreed upon, everything is purple and green, 10,000 purple blood talismans, 1,000 fire phoenix talismans, and an endless life talisman. The speaker is the leader of Zaofa sect, pay a chapter." But at this moment, he was facing Master Zhu Yang with a sarcastic look on his face. "Bah, you are so shameless in recruiting Fu section, you just licked the master of Wanjian Mountain normally, but now you want to lick even the elders." Master Zhu Yang is also an arrogant person, so he sarcastically replied. Maybe he was afraid of the two major forces, Haori sect and Wanjian Mountain, but he was not afraid of the Zaofa sect. A sect that relied on the breath of Wanjian Mountain to survive and had only talismans as a means of survival would not be taken seriously by him at all. Fu Zhang was furious after being slapped in the face in public. After all, he was also a monk in the elixir formation stage and the leader of a sect. Faced with such ridicule, if he didn't return it, how could he have the face to establish himself in Yezhu? "Old dog of Zhu Yang, eat my talisman." As soon as he finished speaking, Fu Zhang reached out and threw out a talisman. The moment the yellow talisman left his hand, a ball of fire erupted. In the blink of an eye, the fire light twisted into the shape of a fire bird. "Chiang chiang chiang. No, it's a fire phoenix." After 3 phoenix calls, the fire phoenix rushed towards Master Zhu Yang as quickly as lightning. "Little tricks." Master Zhu Yang also shouted coldly, and drew a semicircle with his right hand in front of him. Within the arc, the spiritual power was compressed, revealing a terrifying power. Then, he used a little force with his left hand to shoot out the entire arc and rushed towards the approaching fire phoenix. Boom! The arc exploded when it touched it, and suddenly the entire mountaintop platform was filled with spiritual energy, like the sky was falling apart and the earth was cracking, and the wind was surging. The entire Zilang peak also shook. None of the alchemy formation monks present were of the same generation as Yi Xiang. They had already taken precautions when the two took action, and even watched the two fighting with gloating. Even if they fight to the death, there will be 2 less people competing with them for the ownership of Zhu Yun. The fire phoenix was defeated by Zhu Yang Genren's arc, but Fu Zhang did not give up. The moment the fire phoenix talisman was thrown out, he held a talisman in his left and right hands. And these 2 talismans are actually red. The expressions of several people in the Danja period who recognized this talisman changed drastically. They had no intention of staying here and watching. They each used their physical skills to escape, all the way down to the foot of Zilang Peak. None of the monks who could cultivate to the stage of elixir formation were fools. A few took the lead in avoiding, and the rest naturally would not fall behind. In a blink of an eye, only Fu Zhang and Master Zhu Yang were left on the entire platform. And with the dust and smoke flying everywhere and the gravel flying, Fu Zhang threw the 2 talismans towards Master Zhu Yang without hesitation. "No, this talisman is weird. Seeing the two red talismans passing through the smoke and dust, then attacking him one after another, Master Zhu Yang felt chills in his heart, and a sense of crisis arose out of thin air. Without hesitation, he took out the 9-turn-9 Yang formation disc from his sleeve and threw it directly in front of him. 9-turn-9 Yang formation, rise. The array disc landed, and the 81 array patterns lit up, counting 9 as the number, protecting Master Zhu Yang layer by layer. The two talismans also hit Master Zhu Yang one after another. First, a ball of blood exploded, and then a bloody cloud formed above Master Zhu Yang's head, and a torrential rain of red liquid began. Drops of water, like blood, fell on the shield formed by the text, and slowly corroded in. But Master Zhu Yang is not a vegetarian. He condenses his spiritual power and strongly supports the light of the formation pattern. If the array pattern is destroyed, he will lose his skin even if he doesn't die. But now he has no way out, but he never expected that Fu Zhangji, who was in the elixir forming stage and was so swayed by the crowd, would actually develop such a powerful talisman. The fight on Zilang Peak was so anxious, but everyone at the foot of the mountain was silent and had their own plans. No one knows what other people are planning. He is even more afraid that his every move will make him stand out. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 154. No one wanted to leave to gather the people in the sect or tip off the secret, because they only needed to stay here for 3 days, and someone would come out of the secret realm. Even most of the Jindan stage here had entered the secret realm before, and they knew that 3 days outside meant at least half a month in the secret realm. No one dared to guarantee that Zuyun would come out of the secret realm when they left. They knew that if someone left at this time, they would be killed by the others. The lifespan of the Jindan stage was at least nearly 1,000 years, and they were all immortals who had lived for hundreds of years. As long as the benefits were enough, even a Jindan stage cultivator would dare to offend the people of Wanjian Mountain and Haori sect even if he had the strength to fight. So even Jian Chaiwu and Elder Chu, who had the deepest background, chose to keep a low profile. In the secret realm, Zuyun had no time to care that he was being stared at by more than a dozen Jindan stages outside, just because he was also in trouble. In front of him, more than a dozen foundation building stage cultivators looked at Zuyun with greed in their eyes without saying a word. Zuyun did not act rashly, but just held the middle-grade magic sword tightly in his hand. He naturally knew that these people were the same as the Jindan stage outside, and they were like this because of the light gate phenomenon he caused. A man is innocent, but he is guilty of holding a treasure. This was the first truth he understood after embarking on the immortal path. And no matter how strong he was, he could not kill the combined forces of more than 10 people without any injury. If he used the Changsheng Ju to escape first at this time, he didn't know if there were any cultivators who were good at body movements among them. He knew very well that as long as he moved, these people would move. If there was anyone who could hold him back for a breath, it would be a life and death fight. Either he died or these foundation building stage cultivators died, and it would be possible to stop. Zuyun never did anything without confidence. His mind was spinning rapidly, thinking about how to solve the current dilemma. Otherwise, he would be in danger of death. At this time, a cultivator at the peak of the late foundation building stage on the other side spoke first. He said with a half smile, "Why is this fellow deist so tense? Meeting is fate. Why don't we explore the secret realm together?" After someone spoke, the atmosphere was relatively relaxed. Another cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building said, "Yes, we are all casual cultivators. It is rare to have the opportunity to enter the secret realm. We must stay here until the secret realm is closed to obtain the greatest benefits." Zuyun did not comment, and sneered in his heart. If these people were not for the secrets on him, he would cut off his head and let them sit on it. But at this time, he could only pretend to welcome them and buy time. Zuyun's eyes turned, and he said with a smile, all the fellow deists gathered here and are eyeing us covetously. I am alone and naturally afraid. Ha ha ha, the late foundation building cultivator was also a smart person. After deliberately laughing, he said as if he was familiar with each other, fellow deist, you are joking. We are not familiar with each other. But traveling in Yazhu, it is extremely difficult for everyone to rely on. Before you came in, we also reached a consensus. The independent cultivators should help each other, and if there is any harvest, they can be shared equally as needed. And in this way, we will not be bullied by those sect cultivators. Hearing this, Zhu Yun's mind flashed with inspiration. Since we don't know each other, it will be easy. He sneered and said, don't be so hypocritical, everyone. I know what you are doing. Hearing these words that seemed to tear his face apart, the face of the late foundation building cultivator also turned cold. Before he could speak, he heard Zhu Yun say, don't you just want to find the treasure that caused the strange phenomenon in the secret realm on me? To be honest, this treasure is on me, but there is only one treasure. Who can you give it to? As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere among this group of casual cultivators suddenly became tense. At the same time, they also pulled away from each other, each took out their own life magic weapon, and waited for battle. There were more than 10 people in total, and only one person was at the peak of the late foundation building stage, and the rest were around the middle foundation building stage. Zhu Yun glanced at them and saw that they were almost fighting on their own, but there were 2 middle foundation building cultivators standing together. He immediately had a plan in his mind, and said directly to the peak of the late foundation building stage, my fellow Taoist, your realm is the highest here. If you can protect me all the way in the secret realm, I can share the secret of the treasure with you, so that you can find the treasure in this secret realm. Which cultivator who came to the secret realm did not prepare a few means and trump cards? Zhu Yun unveiled all their fig leaves. Almost everyone rushed towards the peak of the late foundation building stage cultivator at this moment. Zhu Yun only said a few words, and he became the target of public criticism. The peak of the late foundation building stage was shocked. He thought that he had the highest realm and the strongest strength, and he could seize the initiative, but he didn't expect that everyone would attack him first. In a hurry, he hurriedly raised his life magic weapon to resist. But the other cultivators, knowing that they were facing the strongest person, almost all played their trump cards. After a bombardment, he withstood 3 people but couldn't withstand the attacks of others. Bang, bang, bang. First there was the sound of the magic weapon hitting his flesh, and then some colorful spells hit him. With just one blow from this person's hand, the cultivator at the peak of the late stage of foundation building was knocked to the ground, severely injured. Blood was flowing out of his body, and he was already dying. The primary target was eliminated, and everyone seemed to have become headless flies at this moment. But Zhu Yun took out a golden Nanmu box from his storage bag and threw it at the 2 people who were in the middle stage of foundation building. It was the box that came from the alchemy room of Zhuyang Genren, which contained the 9 transformations of the 9 Yang formation diagram. At the same time, Zhu Yun deliberately shouted, the treasure is in it, grab it yourself. After saying that, he turned and left without stopping, using the chaotic spiritual power to step on the longevity step to escape at a high speed. The golden Nanmu box fell into the hands of one of the 2 people. Those monks who had just stopped, like hungry wolves, found their prey again, and rushed towards them like they were pouncing on food. The people who were divided and provoked by Zhu Yun felt that Zhu Yun might be deceiving them, but they were also afraid that this was really a treasure. This treasure that can drive the secret realm to produce strange phenomena, if you get it, it will definitely soar into the sky. No one wants to give up at this time. Furthermore, Zhu Yun had asked them to join forces to kill the strongest person at the peak of the late stage of foundation building. If they could kill the 2-person group of cultivators, the rest of them would have an equal chance of getting the treasure. No one was a fool, but Zuyun took advantage of this. In fact, he was not far away at this time. He was lying in a small earth pit half a mile away, watching the battle here from afar. Among all the cultivators who entered the secret realm, only this group of people saw that he caused the secret realm to produce strange phenomena. So all these people must die. There was a melee of many people, and they fought on their own. After the two-person group of cultivators were killed, there were casualties again soon. Whoever grabbed the wooden box would be attacked by others. At the same time, as long as one person moved a little slower, the rest of the cultivators would also attack tacitly. Finally, after the casualties all over the ground, only a cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building was left standing there. He held the golden Nanmu box in his hand, and his eyes were full of uncontrollable joy. He thought he was the final winner, but he didn't know that in Zuyun's eyes, he was the final prey. The copper lock of the golden Nanmu box was still hanging on it. Zuyun did not forcefully break the lock array, so the copper lock was still intact. The foundation building cultivator did not understand the array, nor did he recognize that it was a lock array. He used brute force to break it a few times, directly triggering the self-destruction restriction of the lock array. Bang! The copper lock first made a crisp sound, followed by a loud noise, and the entire golden Nanmu box instantly burned into powder. The foundation building cultivator quickly let go, knowing that he had been deceived by Zuyun. When he was about to curse, a fierce sword force attacked him from dozens of steps in front of him. It was Zuyun who was holding a mid-grade magic sword and used the chaotic spiritual power to transform the golden spiritual power to drive the sword energy outward. How dare you, kid? You dare to stay here and attack. This mid-stage foundation building was a time when he had nowhere to vent his anger. Seeing that Zuyun dared to attack, he first cursed, jumped up to avoid it, and suddenly took out his lifelong magic weapon and smashed it towards Zuyun in the air. Zuyun had a plan to deal with it. After he dodged the ghost beside him, he immediately drained all the spiritual power in his dantian, and then suddenly greeted him with a palm. Chaos palm. If he could kill with one palm, Zuyun would never use two moves. You know, he had no choice but to fight Wan Laojian at that time. If it weren't for the right time, place, and people, he would have died under the sword cliff of the Spirit Sword sect. This kind of fight that is not under your control is prone to accidents. Although the opponent at this time is at the same level as Wan Laojian at that time, he is no longer the same as before. And the Chaos Palm is a move taught in the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra. He would never doubt the power of this move. Boom! He used up all his dantian's spiritual power, and the power of this palm was all blasted on the opponent. Or he faced Zuyun's Chaos Palm himself. No. A heart-wrenching wail sounded, and the cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building was instantly swallowed by Zuyun's palm power. After all the spiritual power dissipated, the cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building had disappeared. I don't know whether he was blasted out of the secret realm by Zuyun, or was directly blasted into dust by him. Finally, there was no accident. Zuyun's mind finally relaxed, and he used the power of his body to drive the Changshengju, quickly clearing out the storage bags of the corpses on the ground, and then ran several miles away. He believed that the fight here would definitely attract other cultivators to come and watch, and he had no spiritual power at all, so it was not suitable to stay here for a long time. After finding an inconspicuous corner, he moved his mind and prepared to enter the Daoliuli realm to hide for a while. First, he wanted to temporarily avoid the limelight, and second, he wanted to take the opportunity to recover his spiritual power. But who knew that not only did he not appear in the mirror space, but the mirror fragment on his chest began to tremble wildly, and at the same time, a beam of light shone through his clothes from his chest and shot up into the sky. It seemed to break through the entire secret space. Not good. Zuyun screamed, frantically took out a spiritual stone and held it in his hand, and ran away. As he expected, all the cultivators in the secret realm saw this beam of light, and they stopped their steps or their hands. There was only one thought in their minds. There must be a secret treasure when there is a natural phenomenon. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 155. In the secret realm, no one knows how big it is, and no one can tell the direction. They only know that this place is a vast grassland, a whole secret realm. At this time, the pillar of light rising into the sky can give them the goal of finding immortal fate. De Go, Chen Hua and others only met their eyes for a moment, and then immediately decided to go and check it out. Mu Qingxing came here to find the secrets of the secret realm, so she slowly headed there with Zhao Kamang. The rest of the monks, as long as they have reached the foundation building stage, are not willing to miss this opportunity. This actually gives some fish in troubled waters a chance to refining their energy and take the opportunity to search for heavenly materials and earthly treasures. But two people had a disagreement over this. It was Meng Wei, who was at the peak of the later stage of foundation building, and Ergu, who was at the 8th level of qi refining. Ergu said unceremoniously, "Palace Master Meng Xiao, I followed you here to find the elixir for a breakthrough. Why are you joining in the fun?" When Meng Wei heard these words, he withdrew his eyes, stared at Ergu and said, "I suddenly thought that this secret realm appeared 300 years ago, and my master also met the Lord of Wanjian Mountain 300 years ago. It disappeared after the battle at Purple Langfeng. This beam of light might be related to my master." Ergu was slightly startled, knowing that he seemed to have misunderstood Meng Wei, so he softened his tone and said, "Aren't you going to join in the fun?" Snort. Meng Wei showed a slight displeasure, and snorted and said, "I always keep my word and keep my promises. I said I came here to find an opportunity for you to continue. How could there be any reason to do anything else? Anyway, this secret realm is so vast that you can't find it anywhere, so just go with me." Ergu is not stupid. He knows that since this beam of light can attract Meng Wei's interest, it will naturally attract the rest of the foundation building stage. There will always be chaos when there are too many people. He might die if someone rubs him in the qi refining stage. Forget it. If you want to find your master, then I'll go find that yellow grass alone. Anyway, that grass is of no use to anyone else. Only I can use it. I'm not afraid that other people will pick it up when they see it. Walk. No. Meng Wei shook his head repeatedly and said, "When I came here, I paid special attention to some qi refining periods. Those ants are basically in groups. You are going alone, and you only have the 8th level of qi refining. If you meet someone with evil intentions, isn't it certain that he will die? If it were anyone else, Meng Wei would not take it seriously, but Ergu was Zhu Yun's beloved brother. He had obviously found him but failed to protect him well. If he met Zhu Yun again, he would not be able to explain it to him. Furthermore, she always keeps her promises and is unwilling to break her promises to others. This goes against her Taoist conscience." But Ergu expressed his worries, and Meng Wei fell silent. Indeed, even if Meng Wei is now at the peak of the late foundation building stage and can be regarded as one of the highest level people in the secret realm, she cannot guarantee the safety of Ergu if there are too many foundation building stages. But Meng Wei would be unwilling to explore the secret of this light pillar. Meng Wei's heart felt like a battle between heaven and man. After a moment of silence, she took out her knife. "You are familiar with my natal magical weapon, and I will leave it to you for self-defense. When things happen over there, I will come find you again." The knife is a high-grade magic weapon, and it has now been fully restored. Ergu once used it to kill the foundation building period of the Magic Wheel sect. Ergu knew that this was the only way at the moment, so he simply took it, thanked Meng Wei, and said, "Be careful yourself, and be sure not to have any accidents." Meng Wei didn't speak, just nodded, then turned around and rushed towards the light pillar. At the same time, Zuyun became more and more frightened as he ran. The vibration of the Daewoo-glazed mirror fragment on his chest has not stopped, and the light beam has naturally not dissipated. What the hell is going on? After running for a long time, I couldn't find a place to hide. Looking at it, this is an endless open area, with low weeds underfoot, but from time to time, you can see grass half as high as a person. As for trees and the like, they are extremely rare. He had a vague guess in his mind, could this secret realm be a grassland? But since it is a grassland, there must be monsters and spiritual beasts. As soon as this idea came to his mind, Zuyun saw a black dot suddenly appear in the distance, running towards him quickly. This is really... Zuyun cursed in his heart. He really came to whatever he didn't want. He immediately turned around and ran towards the other side. But even if he tried his best, because his spiritual power had not been restored, he would not be any faster if he only used the power of his body to drive the steps of the immortality secret. And when the black spot saw Zuyun changing direction, he followed closely. Even with a speed difference visible to the naked eye, he soon reached half a mile behind him. The sound of footsteps came. It was obviously a four-hoofed monster. Damn, how come it's so fast? Zuyun didn't even have time to look back, but quickly took out several Firebird talisman from the storage bag. Due to insufficient spiritual power and limited spiritual awareness, he was unable to lock onto the monster chasing behind him. He could only use several Firebird talisman to cover the attack at this critical moment, thus killing the monster. But just when he turned around, he was instantly stunned. Just because of this, it turned out to be a horse. An extremely ordinary-looking mortal mane horse. If it weren't for the spiritual energy surging in this horse, he almost thought it was a monster. And more importantly, this horse gave him a feeling of déjà vu. After seeing Zuyun turn around, the horse also slowed down. After running to Zuyun more than 10 steps away, the horse stood up and neighed happily. Bah! Bah! Zuyun was stunned. He could see from the dark eyes that this horse was extremely spiritual. The neighing sound is over. The horse walked slowly towards Zuyun, and soon got close to Zuyun. It bent its neck, brought its head close, and rubbed Zuyun's chest intimately. This action made Zuyun suddenly remember an unsolved mystery from that year. That was when he was still in the Lingjian sect and went to Nanfangfang City to buy an alchemy furnace. On the way, he bought a horse in a small town at the foot of the mountain. Every time I feed the horse some water and hay when I am resting, the horse will always do this. Later, when I planned to practice somewhere, I wanted to take the horse into the Daewoo glazed mirror, but unexpectedly, the horse disappeared without any reason, and there was no trace at all. And he is now very sure that this horse is the one that disappeared. And this secret realm, combined with the vision of the light gate that he triggered outside, and the soaring light pillar emitting from his body at this time, is undoubtedly inseparable from the Daewoo glazed mirror. But at this time, Zuyun was not overly happy. If the beam of light on his body did not retreat for a while, he would always be in danger. But it is obvious that Zuyun, who has no clue, can completely put his hope of unlocking the light beam on this horse. It has been about 10 years since this horse entered the secret realm. Regardless of whether there is a time difference between this secret realm and the outside world, the mortal horse has lived safely for 10 years in the secret realm full of aura, and it seems to be still alive. If it is good, it is enough to show that the horse has a place to hide. Maybe if you follow it yourself, you might be able to survive this crisis safely. After the light pillar disappears, he will come out to explore the connection between the secret realm and the Daewoo glazed mirror. Thinking of this, Zuyun did not hesitate, turned over and stepped onto the horse's back. With a gentle pat on the back, the horse turned around and ran in the direction he came from. Zuyun was slightly startled. He originally wanted to test whether the horse could understand human speech, but now he thought that since he was running around like a headless fly, he might as well let the horse take him away. In the distance, those light pillars that had been motionless suddenly started to move quickly again, and they also accelerated their speed to pursue them. However, two people stopped because the attention was moving towards them. Fairy Mew, I know a few basics about formations. Do you want to stay here and wait? It was Zhao Kamang who spoke. Mu Qingxin also looked at the beam of light from a distance, and after pondering for a moment, she said, "That's good, it saves us from wasting our spiritual energy." Zhao Kamang's face showed joy. "Please wait for a moment, Fairy Mew." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Kamang started to move. He reached into his storage bag and took out more than 10 spirit stones. After scattering them around with a unique technique, he took out a few demon pills as big as pills and threw them out one after another. Every demon pill is attached to the spirit stone thrown previously. Then he muttered words, his hands kept dancing, and he held the magic formula between his fingers. Not long after, the spiritual power in the spirit stone and the demonic power in the demon pill became entangled with each other. After rising several feet high, they suddenly disappeared into the air. The formation is complete. Mu Qingxin didn't understand formations. This was the first formation she had come into contact with besides the 9 turns and 9 suns formation. Zhao Kamang was full of confidence and said energetically, "Fairy Mew, this formation was learned from the Wild Sea. It is different from other formations in that it is mixed with demonic power. Even if it is in front of the formation master, come on, it won't be possible to break it in a moment." Mu Qingxin just nodded without saying anything. Zhao Kamang kept explaining the mysterious features of this formation. One of the points was that it was impossible for people outside the formation to see them in the formation. As long as the light beam rushed nearby, they could use the formation to capture them. As time goes by, the entire foundation building period in the secret realm is surrounded by that light pillar. And Zuyun finally approached the 10,000 demon array. Yes, this was the 10,000 demon array that Zhao Kamang set up in Nanfangfang city at that time. However, at that time, Zhao Kamang wanted to control Sun Qinyang in the formation, so the formation covered the entire city. But here he mainly covered the whereabouts of the two people, so the scale was much smaller. Coming. The two people in the 10,000 demon array finally saw the bottom of the light pillar. Seeing that it was a horse carrying a person, they couldn't help but cheer up. However, just when one person and one horse were about to rush into the formation of 10,000 demons, they suddenly stopped. Zhao Kamang's eyes flashed and he shouted to Mu Qingxin in a low voice, "Fairy Mew, we have been discovered. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 156. Horse, what's wrong? The galloping horse suddenly stopped, and Zuyun was also startled, and subconsciously asked in a low voice. Although the horse is spiritual, it can't speak, but it steps back and forth anxiously. Feeling such a strange situation, Zuyun immediately turned over and dismounted, looking around vigilantly. When he sat on the horse, he had absorbed the spiritual power of a whole spiritual stone. For the entire Danshan, it is less than 1/10, but at least it has the ability to protect itself. This place is about half a mile away from the 10,000 demons formation, and Zuyun's spiritual consciousness can't detect it at all. Similarly, Zhao Kamang and Mu Qingxin couldn't detect it either, and at this distance, they couldn't see Zuyun's appearance, not to mention that at this time, their attention was completely on the light column. "Brother Zhao, what should we do now?" Mu Qingxin was inexperienced and asked hurriedly. Zhao Kamang thought for a moment and said, "The light column was caused by that person, so the secret treasure must be on him. Judging from the speed they moved just now, We can't capture them directly. The only thing we can do now is to wait and see. Zuyun used his spiritual sense to explore the surroundings. After finding nothing, he got on the horse again, touched the horse's mane and said, "Since you have sensed the abnormality, can you take a detour?" I don't know if the horse understood Zuyun's words, but just kept turning around with Zuyun on its back, as if there were dangers on all sides. Just when Zuyun frowned, a dark red figure suddenly flew in the air in the distance on the right. The speed was so fast and the momentum was so fierce that Zuyun could guess with his naked eyes that it was definitely a strong man at the peak of the late stage of foundation building. Zuyun was startled and knew that he couldn't go in that direction. He looked to the left and was shocked again. It wasn't that there were masters of the same realm coming over there, but dozens of people were divided into several teams, coming in parallel, and not giving way to each other. He didn't have time to marvel at the horse's ability to perceive danger, and he quickly looked back. Sure enough, there were more than a dozen foundation building stage masters flying high and low in the sky in the direction they came from. Some were stepping on swords, while others were controlling various magical instruments. There were people everywhere. And he was the target of these people. "Horse, there is no one in front of us. Can we rush out from the front?" Zuyun knew that it was useless to be anxious at this time. He calmly looked at the overall situation, and it seemed that only the front was the direction to escape. "Whisper, Wheezy." As if sensing that he was also trapped in the siege, the horse suddenly neighed and stood up. When he landed, his hind legs suddenly kicked the ground and rushed out quickly towards the front. "Fairy Mew, he's coming." The two also observed that there were many foundation building period people coming in the 10,000 monsters formation. When they were struggling whether to take the initiative, they didn't expect Zuyun to rush towards them. They were overjoyed. Mu Qingxin hurriedly said, "Brother Zhao, if he rushes into the formation, I will use the fake wood spirit bead to restrain him, and you quickly take him down." "Okay, watch me." Zhao Kamang responded without hesitation and turned his head away, but he didn't know that at that moment, a gleam of light flashed in Mu Qingxin's eyes. Before entering the secret realm, True Manju Yang told her that Zhao Kamang knew too much, and when necessary, he could be killed in the secret realm. In the past few days of getting along, Mu Qingxin always couldn't help comparing Zhao Kamang with Zuyun. Except for the realm, she felt that Zhao Kamang was not as good as Zuyun. Even in the conversation, the overly attentive performance made her very dislike, and even hate it. In particular, she could sense a hint of lust from Zhao Kamang's eyes from time to time. So she had no psychological burden at all to let Zhao Kamang die here. But just when Zuyun and his horse were about to rush into the 10,000 monsters formation, the horse neighed wildly and stood up again. Zuyun made a prompt decision and released his spiritual consciousness immediately, and at this time he finally discovered something. There is such a huge demonic energy here. He was shocked, but he used the spell without hesitation. Golden Sun Curse. As soon as the spell started, Zhao Kamang in the formation had already recognized Zuyun, his eyes were about to burst, and his eyes were full of hatred. At that time in the southern market, he was hit by Zuyun's Chaos Palm, which not only blew up his 10,000 monsters body, but also blasted him out of the 10,000 monsters formation, so that the cultivators of the 36 caves of the sea occupied his market. He also lost his freedom and was taken to Yeazhu by the 9 Yang True Man to become Mu Qingxin's bodyguard. When enemies meet, they are particularly jealous. But Zhao Kamang still retained a trace of rationality and did not rush out of the 10,000 monsters formation. Zuyun's Golden Sun Curse, with thousands of rays of light, directly hit the invisible 10,000 monsters formation in front of him. In an instant, the demonic energy and spiritual power scattered and chaotic. Zuyun's Golden Sun Curse was driven entirely by the spiritual power of the gold system. It was so powerful that it directly destroyed the 10,000 monsters formation. Zhao Kamang and Mu Qingxin also showed up at this moment. "It's you." Zuyun recognized Zhao Kamang at first sight, and with a surprised cry, he squeezed his legs against the horse's belly and wanted the horse to go around from the side. How could he have time to see who the woman not far from him was? If he had enough spiritual power, Zuyun would not be afraid of Zhao Kamang at all. But the situation was critical at this time, and there were cultivators from 3 directions chasing and blocking him behind him. How could he dare to stay here? Just when Zuyun was riding his horse and Kankan was avoiding the side, Zhao Kamang instantly used his killer move. "Leave me alone." As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand suddenly grabbed Zuyun from the air. The demon power rushed out from his lower abdomen, wrapped around his arms, and when it rushed between his palms, the palm quickly transformed into a huge demon claw. His fingers were slightly hooked, his nails were sharp, and his fingertips were emitting a strange cold light. 10,000 demon claws. Seeing that this claw was about to grab Zuyun and crush him and his horse into pieces, Mu Qingxin finally came to her senses and screamed, "Master Yun." Hearing this familiar voice, Zuyun turned around subconsciously, just in time to see the huge demon claw coming towards him. His heart was shattered, but he heard Mu Qingxin shout again. "Stop!" The sound actually penetrated Zuyun's zifu, making him feel the vibration in his soul. His mind was like lightning, and he immediately knew that this was Mu Qingxin using the puppet soul control technique to control Zhao Kamang. Sure enough, Zhao Kamang stopped completely, with dull eyes in his eyes. "Xianxia, I owe you a favor. Say goodbye now, see you later." Zuyun cupped his hands and said that without stopping, he held the horse's belly between his arms and sprinted towards the distance. "Master Yun!" Mu Qingxin yelled again, but Zuyun didn't look back at all. He had no grudge against Mu Qingxin, but what about Zhao Kamang? In addition, there are so many foundation building stages that are being pursued. This is not a time for reminiscing. However, Mu Qingxin was puzzled by Zuyun's behavior, and she thought it was because he didn't want to pay attention to her. As his figure moved away, his eyes slowly lost their warmth. "Since you are so heartless, don't blame me, Mu Qing, for being heartless." She raised her red lips slightly and uttered cold words. Just as she was about to control Zhao Kamang, who had just become a puppet, and chased towards Zuyun, an icy blue light sword suddenly shot down in mid-air, heading straight towards Zhao. Kamang just stabbed it? Mu Qingxin was startled, and quickly activated the pseudo-wood spirit bead on her chest, and a green light immediately rushed towards the long sword. At the same time, he chanted the secret of controlling the puppet soul, and asked Zhao Kamang to join forces with her to resist this sudden attack. Under Mu Qingxin's control, Zhao Kamang's demonic claws turned to catch the intruder. But not far away, another sword light struck, striking directly at the demon's claw. The power of 10,000 swords. The demon's claw suddenly froze, and a rich male voice was heard again. "Little junior sister, this person is weird and unpredictable, let's stay out of the way for now." It was the big dog who was speaking. But I heard Sun Qiniang chuckle and say, "Senior brother, I fought with this old boy several times in Yunzhou, and he just used this method to kill him while he was sick." As she spoke, her ice blue sword continued to dance, the surrounding temperature dropped sharply, and some ice slag slowly floated in the sky. "Who are you? We have no grievances, so why do we suddenly take action?" After hearing the conversation between the two, Mu Qingxin finally spoke. She heard that Sun Qiniang and Zhao Kamang had a grudge, but shouldn't she go to Guangzhou first at this time? But as soon as he finished speaking, a strange sword light suddenly struck from behind him, piercing into the back of her heart. "It's Chen Hua who practices weird swordsmanship." Mu Qing was heartbroken and hurriedly let the shield of the fake wood spirit bead return to his body, just in time to block Chen Hua's sword. Realizing that these 3 people were only in the early stages of foundation building, she was furious, a cold light flashed in her eyes, she quickly recited the puppet soul control technique again, and gave Zhao Kamang a death order. Ouch! Dodge Mang actually let out a monster-like roar from his mouth, and his figure also grew in size. In the blink of an eye, he expanded into a weird dragon-headed monster. The demonic energy soared into the sky and quickly enveloped these three people. Kill me! Following Mu Qingxin's scream, the huge monster transformed by Zhao Kamang smacked the big dog with its first claw. Big dog beware! Chen Hua had a ghostly figure. After his sneak attack on Mu Qingxin missed, he quickly retreated to the big dog's side, just in time to see the huge demonic claws, about to beat the big dog into a pulp. He exclaimed in surprise, and at the same time stabbed the sword directly at the elbow of the demon claw, hoping to surround Wei and save Zhao, and relieve the big dog from danger. Sun Qiniang took advantage of this opportunity and quickly rushed towards Mu Qingxin. Holding the Binglan sword in her hand, she slashed towards Mu Qingxin's neck with a fierce look in her eyes. Putting aside her realm, how could Mu Qingxin be Sun Qiniang's enemy? And she has a single ice spiritual root. With all her spiritual power gathered, she can't resist this killing move. The shield formed by the fake wood spirit beads was frozen layer by the extreme low temperature and then shattered into pieces. Just as the sword edge was about to wipe Mu Qingxin's neck, a strange black shadow with a dark aura rushed towards Sun Qiniang. Behind. Sun Qiniang was horrified. If she killed Mu Qingxin with one sword, she would also be strangled by this black shadow. He immediately gave up the idea of killing Mu Qingxin, and at the same time threw himself forward in a panic, just in time to miss the black shadow. And just when she got up and prepared herself, a figure landed lightly in front of her. The dark red outfit reveals a bit of weirdness. She raised her eyebrows slightly and uttered three words. Sword Tianming. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 157. Sun Qiniang's expression was grim. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Meng Wei chuckled lightly, stretched out his slender hand and placed it on her forehead, directly tearing off her disguise, revealing her stunning appearance. It's you. The demon girl of Yaluo sect. Where is Ergu? In an instant, the big dog's eyes were about to burst and he roared loudly. Wangxian sect and Ye Xianming, who originally wanted to come over, stopped one after another after hearing the words Yaluo sect, with inexplicable looks of horror in their eyes. Meng Wei turned his head and smiled charmingly at the big dog, then looked at Sun Qiniang and said lightly, the sword destiny back then was the ice spirit root. Hundreds of years ago, due to the presence of many masters in Wanjian Mountain, Yujin Dan was able to escape. I didn't expect to encounter another ice spirit root here today. Even if you are not the one, I would rather kill him than let him go, so what? After the words fell, Meng Wei didn't hold back. I saw her sleeves flicked, and countless black shadows flew from her sleeves towards Sun Qiniang. Which, don't be so arrogant. Take my sword. How could the big dog let Meng Wei hurt Sun Qiniang? He shouted angrily and raised his sword to slash at Meng Wei. At the same time, Chen Hua didn't hold back, and with a strange sword step, he stabbed Meng Wei's weak spot with his sword. Haha, I know the 18 sword steps of Wanjian Mountain very well. How can you, just a few of you ants in the foundation building stage, think of hurting me? Before being framed and imprisoned in the Lingjian sect by the people of Wanjian Mountain, Meng Wei had been fighting with the people of Wanjian Mountain almost all his life. Faced with the people who also learned the sword step in Wanjian Mountain, and whose level was completely lower than hers. De Go and Chen Hua, she is almost invincible. Even if Sun Qiniang is included, she cannot be her opponent. But because Meng Wei lent his natal sword to Ergu, he could only rely on Yaluo sect's magic to attack Sun Qiniang. Because of this, Sun Qiniang also had a chance to breathe. Little junior sister, you go first. Although De Go was at a disadvantage, he also knew that Meng Wei was going all out to deal with Sun Qiniang, and he was still safe for a while. Only by letting Sun Qiniang go first, regardless of whether Meng Wei pursues or not, will he and Chen Hua have a chance. No. I won't leave. What will you do after I leave? Sun Qiniang shook her head repeatedly. She was afraid that if she left, Meng Wei would anger De Go and Chen Hua. After a long separation and several months of getting along together, Sun Qiniang, who was originally alone, finally found a companion and was not willing to give up. Although he didn't understand what Meng Wei just said at all, he at least understood that Meng Wei wanted to kill her and then hurry up. After hearing the conversation between the two people, Meng Wei said disdainfully, "Even if you leave, where can you go? Since I know you are in Yeazhu, even if you escape from the secret realm, how can you escape from me, the pursued?" Meng Wei has the confidence to say such words just because she is extremely confident that she can safely return to the realm of the pill formation stage. Maybe others need to realize the Tao and condense the elixir, but she has had such experience, there is no bottleneck at all, and it is impossible to take detours. As long as we maintain our current status, everything will fall into place. She will definitely kill Sun Qiniang. Okay, if you don't leave, we won't leave. The worst we can do is fight her. In a fierce battle, the most feared thing is the disunity of ideas. Big Dog knows this very well, and he is immediately full of fighting spirit. The long sword in his hand keeps dancing, restraining Meng Wei. Chen Hua was waiting for opportunities on the side, stabbing out his sword from time to time. Sun Qiniang also looked crazy and laughed loudly, "I have already died once, no matter what kind of palace master you are." The three of them are originally from the Lingjian sect, and Sun Qiniang's basic swordsmanship was taught by Daegu Daishi. They have practiced countless combined attacks during their time together. It can be said that they know each other very well. Why don't you two fellow Taoists from Wangxian sect step forward to help? During the fierce battle, the Big Dog didn't forget to look for help. He kept calling Huang Lei and Huang Meng to come help with the long sword in his hand. "Sorry, fellow Daoist Bai, we are traveling together to hunt for treasure, not to seek revenge." Huang Lei's eyes flickered, and he actually refused the Big Dog's request. Big Dog was not surprised. After he took action, the two people stood far away and vaguely guessed the result. But at this time, Mu Qingxin, who was on the edge of their battle circle, suddenly glowed with green light, and actually led Zhao Kamang away. Huang Lei and Huang Meng looked at each other and read the meaning in their eyes. Huang Lei lowered his voice and said to Ye Xianming, "Fellow Daoist, yeah, let's go after the secret treasure." Ye Xuanming's pupils shrank, he hesitated for a moment, but shook his head resolutely, "I was brought in by two fellow Taoists by. If you want to leave, you can leave, but I won't leave. Act recklessly." Huang Lei cursed secretly, nodded to Huang Meng, and the two of them used their skills to quickly chase Zuyun in the direction he left. Two groups of people moved in succession, and those who had stayed here to watch also used their magical powers to stay away from here. For them, this means losing several strong opponents. If they don't go now, when will they wait? For a while, only Meng Wei and Daegu were left fighting, and Ye Xianming was watching. Meng Wei thought that she had the absolute upper hand, but she didn't expect that the three people cooperated so well, which immediately made her a little restless. Then when he saw many monks leaving, Meng Wei remembered that the reason why he came here was to find his master. Compared with killing Jian Tianming, who was reincarnated in her eyes, the whereabouts of the master were more important. As those foundation-building masters left, Meng Wei suddenly blasted out a palm, directly knocking the three back a few steps, and then immediately turned around and flew into the air. "I'll let you live a little longer, and I'll kill you after I've done my job." After the words fell, Meng Wei floated away from the battle, stepped on the magic weapon refined by Sun Suanhua for him, and quickly disappeared from their sight. At this time, the Big Dog finally couldn't hold on, and while collapsing on the ground, he suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. Big dog. Big brother. Friend Bai. The three screamed and rushed forward one after another. Chen Hua half knelt on one leg behind the big dog, like a backing, but Sun Qiniang was a little at a loss. She had never encountered such a situation before and didn't know how to deal with it. Ye Xianming then stepped forward, his face was tangled for a long time, and then he said, "Friend Bai, take 3 red blood pills, and practice the qi refining method for 3 cycles, and you will be able to recover." Big Dog's eyes showed surprise. He could expect that the powerful Huanglei brother and sister would leave here, but he never thought that Ye Xianming would stay here. "Thank you." Big Dog responded weakly, and took out the porcelain bottle from his arms with trembling hands, poured out 3 red blood pills and put them into his mouth, and began to refine the medicinal power and practice the qi refining method according to Ye Xuanming's requirements. "Old Ye, thank you very much." Ye Xianming is older than them, and Chen Hua has long called him by this name. Ye Xianming smiled bitterly, and after a moment of silence, he asked, "You are all from Wanjian Mountain, right? You hid it so well that you fooled me." Chen Hua was slightly stunned, and heard the hidden meaning in Ye Xuanming's words, so he asked curiously, "Old Ye, just say it directly, we are all straightforward people, and never beat around the bush." And Sun Qiniang simply said, "They are from Wanjian Mountain, but I am not. We didn't lie to you at first, we are indeed disciples of Yunzhou Lingjian sect." Hearing Sun Qiniang's words, Ye Xianming looked up and said, "You are also from Wanjian Mountain, because you are Jian Tianming." Chen Hua couldn't help but say, "Old Ye, what are you talking about? Who is Jian Tianming that you and that which are talking about?" Speaking of this, he glanced at Sun Qiniang again and continued, "When junior sister Sun entered the Lingjian sect, she was only 6 or 7 years old. How could she be from Wanjian Mountain? I'm not wrong. She is Jian Tianming. I didn't think about it at first, but Meng Wei suddenly said this name, and I remembered it." Chen Hua asked curiously, "Meng Wei? Is this the name of the witch?" "Yes, he is the young master of Yaluo sect." Ye Xianming nodded, but in fact he had something else to say, or he didn't dare to say it. Because he is one of the few disciples of Qixingmen who survived in the world. And Qixingmen was destroyed by Wanjian Mountain. In fact, Ye Xianming is the eldest brother of Ye Xuanhua, who changed his surname to Sunday hundreds of years ago. When Yaluo sect and Wanjian Mountain fought, he left Yeazhu for the great success of Dan Dao and went to Peepa Realm to find the immortal fate. It stands to reason that with his foundation building stage, he couldn't live for more than 500 years. But due to his fate, he found a spiritual herb that could refine the longevity pill. After refining the pill and swallowing it, this longevity pill actually increased his lifespan by 500 years. In the past 500 years, he was obsessed with the way of alchemy and couldn't extricate himself. He studied all kinds of elixirs, or improved them, or innovated them. When he came to his senses, he found that his lifespan was only 50 years left. Originally, he wanted to swallow another longevity pill. Even if the effect was worse, it could at least increase his lifespan by 400 years, and allow him to stay in the Peepa realm for a longer time. But it seemed that the way of heaven made it so. The Peepa realm was suddenly turbulent. Not to mention those in the Jindan stage, it was its unrivaled existence. From time to time, some Yuanying stage people could be seen coming out of the retreat. Ye Xianming thought that he hadn't been back to the Seven Stars Gate for a long time, so he went back to Yeazhu to take a look. Who would have thought that the Seven Stars Gate no longer existed? After some inquiries, he learned that the Seven Stars Gate was destroyed by Wanji Unshan. Wanji Unshan was extremely powerful, and he had not practiced in these years, so it was impossible for him to take revenge. The Yaluo sect, which was originally evenly matched with him, no longer existed. It was just heard that their young master Menghui had been missing for 500 years and had only recently returned to be Ye's Hu. Menghui. 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 Meng, Wu, Yat. Just when Ye Xianming was sighing in his heart about the world, a low and high murmur suddenly came to his ears. Sun Qiniang kept repeating Menghui's name, and every time she read it, the murderous aura would be a bit more fierce. The big dog, who had closed his eyes and was practicing qi peacefully, couldn't help but tremble his eyelids. And Chen Hua was even more frightened, just watching Sun Qiniang's aura suddenly rise. She actually broke through from the initial stage of foundation building to the middle stage. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 158. What's going on? Chen Hua blurted out, with an unbelievable look on his face. Ye Xianming sighed and said, "You are also a disciple of Wanjian Mountain, haven't you heard of Jian Tianming?" Chen Hua shook his head and said, "Our elders in Wanjian Mountain do have Jian as their surname, but their names are all arranged in numbers. Have you ever heard of being named with such an arrogant word as destiny?" Ye Xianming raised his head and looked into the distance, with a look of relief in his eyes. "That's right, Wanjian Mountain's first genius in so many years was killed by Menghui of the same realm with a sword. Who in Wanjian Mountain dares to carry the preparation, being insulted? On the contrary, in the years since I returned to Yeazhu, I have heard some storytellers talk about the past. The rumors are basically the same, but they don't know that Jian Tianming is actually a woman." Ye Xianming was right about this. The people of Wanjian Mountain have always been arrogant, let alone the unparalleled Jian Tianming. Then his realm is also in the elixir formation stage? In other words, he escaped from the elixir back then. Chen Hua felt that his eyelids could not stop trembling. Who would have thought that junior sister's son who came out of the Lingjian sect with him was actually Wan Jianshan, an elder who had lived for hundreds of years in the Danja stage? That's right, Ye Xianming looked at Sun Qiniang, who seemed to be possessed by a demon, with a look of envy in his eyes. "I don't know what method he used. It doesn't look like he is practicing again, but it is different from seizing the body. No matter which method is used, it stands to reason that the memory should be preserved." But Chen Hua also followed Ye Xuanming's gaze and saw that Sun Qiniang's momentum had softened and finally stopped at the middle stage of foundation building. But she was still mumbling to herself. "Who I am? I am Sun Qiniang. No, I'm not just Sun Qiniang, I'm also Jian Tianming. Menghui, Menghui is my mortal enemy. My sword, Tianming, wants to kill Menghui. I am the elder of Wanjian Mountain, and I will kill everyone in Yaluo sect." Suddenly, a sharp light appeared in Sun Qiniang's eyes. No, now it should be said to be Jian Tianming. His hair, which had been scattered wildly due to confusion, was tied back casually by his hands, and then a haughty gaze glanced at the three of them again. Chen Hua and Ye Xianming trembled. Even the big dog, in the process of refining his energy, trembled involuntarily. Jian Tianming's eyes swept over the three of them one after another, and finally landed on Ye Xianming. "I remember you, you are a disciple of the Seven-Star sect." As soon as these words came out, Ye Xuanming's expression changed drastically. "Jian Tianming, I didn't expect you to still remember a little person like me." While speaking, Ye Xianming reached out and pressed it on his storage bag. If Ye Xianming can concentrate on alchemy for 500 years without practicing in the Peepa realm, he will naturally have the ability to protect himself. Besides, the current Jian Tianming is not the Jian Tianming who was in the pill formation stage 500 years ago. "Junior sister's son, what do you mean?" In desperation, Chen Hua had no time to change his words and held his sword in front of Ye Xianming to protect him. Regardless of whether Ye Xianming was from the Seven-Star sect or the Eight-Star sect, at least when Big Dog and he were in danger, he did not follow the two people from the Wangxian sect to escape alone, which was already a great act of kindness. Not to mention staying and giving guidance to the big dog to heal. He. Jian Tianming chuckled and turned around disdainfully. For the sake of helping my senior brother, I will spare your life. I, Jian Tianming, will never spare my hand to those who are enemies of Wanjian Mountain. Hearing this, Ye Xianming was furious. Jian Tianming, don't be arrogant. You are only in the middle stage of foundation building now. Snort. Jian Tianming snorted contemptuously, but looked far away in the direction Menghui left. If there hadn't been an accident and my memory was integrated with Sun Qinyang's, otherwise I would have returned to the end a few years ago. The realm of Dankai. You should feel lucky, Jian Tianming pointed at his head. I haven't completely eliminated Sun Qinyang's consciousness, otherwise you would be a corpse at this time. At this moment, Big Dog suddenly opened his eyes. So are you Sun Qinyang or Jian Tianming now? Hearing this, Jian Tianming suddenly turned around and looked at the big dog. His eyes softened for a moment. Now I am Sun Qinyang and Jian Tianming. Otherwise, just because you advised me not to join Wanjian Mountain and to escape from Wanjian Mountain within 100 years, I would be dead. Without waiting for the big dog to speak, Jian Tianming continued, while Sun Qinyang's consciousness can still affect me, get out of here. If we don't meet again next time, I won't hold anything back. When he saw the big dog and was about to say something, Chen Hua suddenly stepped forward and stopped him. He signaled not to speak. Unexpectedly, the big dog shook and broke away. Chen Hua said anxiously, what about Zuyun? Zuyun. Sun Qinyang's face suddenly turned cold, as if Zuyun's name at this moment aroused the incomparable resentment in his heart. If it weren't for him, how could my parasitic body be destroyed by him? As a last resort, the golden elixir was born early before it was fully integrated into the bloodline, so I had to lose all my memories and be reincarnated to practice. It turns out that Jian Tianming was killed by Menghui with a sword in front of everyone. In order to save his life, Jian Tianming's golden elixir hurriedly escaped. And because she no longer had the face to stay in Wanjian Mountain, she used all her magical powers to escape from the crowd. However, the spiritual power in the golden elixir is limited. In order to prevent the golden elixir from falling when the spiritual power is exhausted, I randomly found a body and hid in it. But she knew that this place was not far from Yaluo sect, and it was very likely that people from Yaluo sect would find clues. Therefore, before entering the body, she released a spiritual consciousness to affect the body's consciousness, and hid in the clouds. Go to the state. After hundreds of twists and turns, Jian Tianming refused to go back and forth, changed several bodies, and finally came to Yunzhou and found Sun Qinyang, who was most suitable for her to be possessed by the golden elixir. She thought that in Sun Qinyang's body, she could completely return to the pill-forming stage and use Sun Qinyang's body for her own use, but she didn't expect to be killed by Zuyun by accident. In desperation, Jian Tianming could only restore Sun Qinyang's life at the critical moment with only 30% of his strength, and slightly tampered with her memory to make her think that she had a way to reincarnate, and then immediately fell into a deep sleep. Until here, Menghui suddenly called out her name, and the moves he used to attack her were extremely familiar. But that's not the point. The most important thing is that Ye Xianming said the 3 words Menghui. This completely awakened the sleeping Jian Tianming. It's just that she has not returned to her peak at this time. Even the memory has not been completely restored. But the pride of her life was cut off by Menghui in front of thousands of people. How could she forget it? That is a deep-seated shame. As for Zuyun, who was also at the peak of her recovery, even though Sun Qinyang's subconscious told her not to hurt Zuyun, she was deeply suppressed by Jian Tianming. He must die. Jian Tianming left these 4 words coldly, and then swung the ice-blue sword, and suddenly the sky was filled with snowflakes. When the heavy snow cleared, Jian Tianming was gone. Big dog, what should I do? Chen Hua said anxiously, he will definitely kill Zhu Yun, I can feel it from her eyes. When they met in Yezhu, Sun Qiniang said that Zhu Yun must have come to Yezhu. The big dog smiled bitterly and said, we don't know where Xiao Zhu is. We still have to think of our own escape strategy now. Chen Huafan suddenly realized that they knew the rules of the secret realm. Between half a month and a month into the secret realm, a light door would appear. Just like the light door outside, you can leave the secret realm by closing the door. Of course, you can also choose to stay in the secret realm. It is not clear how long the light gate will last. Anyway, at a certain moment, everyone will be teleported out. But what worries Big Dog and Chen Hua is that their master, Xianxia, has said that he will wait for their return at Zilang Peak. But the problem is that Sun Qiniang has become an elder of Wanjian Mountain because she sees destiny and sees destiny. In other words, their decision to leave Wanjian Mountain within 100 years will definitely reach Xianxia's ears. If Jian Tianming leaves the secret realm at the same time as them, the consequences will be self-evident. Just when they were worried, Ye Xianming suddenly spoke with a strange look on his face. You want to leave Wanjian Mountain? Only then did the two of them come to their senses. Lao Ye did not belong to Wanjian Mountain. But at this time, it didn't make any sense to hide it or not, so he simply admitted it openly. From what I see, you are worried about the Wanjianshan elders outside, right? Ye Xianming touched his chin and said, I have a few pills here that can solve your predicament. I got them from Peeper Realm. It's made from a special recipe, but I don't know if you dare to eat it. Hearing this, the two of them were overjoyed and asked in unison, what kind of elixir is it? Disguise pill. This is much better than the original disguise method of our 7-star sect. Speaking of elixirs, Ye Xuanming's pride was palpable. Chen Hua said impatiently, then take it out quickly, otherwise when Jian Tianming comes back to kill us, we will have nowhere to hide. Ye Xianming shook his head, wait until the light door opens again before taking it. I'm afraid the medicine will expire. Also, before taking this pill, I have to tell you so that you can be mentally prepared. The big dog frowned and asked, does this pill have any serious side effects? That's not true, Ye Xianming smirked twice, this is one of the elixirs that I rely on to survive in the Peeper realm. After taking it, men will become women and women will become men. After swallowing the elixir, the effect of the elixir will remain in a month's time. Of course, your face will change drastically. As long as you accept it, it won't be a problem. The two of them were dumbfounded. After a long while, Chen Hua screamed like a slaughtering pig, damn it! This is not a disguise pill, you are clearly a sex change pill. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 159. Ye Xianming shrugged and said, this is the only way you can leave the secret realm and Zilang Peak safely. Is it possible that becoming a woman will affect the speed of drawing your sword? Chen Hua lowered his head and touched his chest, thoughtfully. Maybe it's even possible. But he also knew that Ye Xianming was right. In this case, you give us the elixir first. The big dog looked at the beam of light in the distance, turned around and said, since those in the foundation building period have gone after the secret treasure, we will do the opposite and search more. Some genius treasures are not returned empty-handed. Hearing this, Ye Xianming was overjoyed and said, this is the best thing. Let's look for more. When the time comes to leave Zilang Peak, I will take you to my hiding place and let you see my treasure. Ye Xianming also knows how to read people. He knows that Big Dog is different from Chen Hua and ordinary Yezhu monks, and he is alone. It is extremely difficult to return to the Peepa realm after the 7-star gate was destroyed, let alone Peepa. The situation is also in the autumn of troubled times. they definitely won't be able to go back to Wanjian Mountain. If they meet the two of them, they can go to the Peeper Realm together and catch fish in troubled waters. Chen Hua looked at Big Dog. When the two of them walked together, Big Dog basically made the decision. Chen Hua knew that he was not suitable to make decisions. Big Dog did not agree directly, but said, "Let's talk about what happens after we get out, but we will take the opportunity to look for the secret realm. Now we only have some chi refining period left, so we will not be our opponent at all." Ye Xianming knew the two people's worries, but he didn't care about it. But as long as they were not separated, he believed that he would always have a chance to convince them, so he nodded and said, "Okay." The group of 3 people returned along the original road, stopping and stopping along the way, and occasionally gained something. Ye Xianming had good eyesight, and he would find some century-old elixirs from time to time, and they would all pocket them. At the same time, Ye Xianming will also introduce the basic properties of these elixirs, and what elixirs can be refined into, which can be linked to their future practice. He did it on purpose. If you don't reflect your own value, how will you be convinced when the time comes? After about an hour, Ye Xianming suddenly screamed and threw himself into one of the haystacks. Chen Hua and De Go thought that Ye Xianming had found some rare elixir, so they quickly followed him. I saw an inconspicuous elixir plant, emitting a dark light, hiding under the weeds. Although the color is different, it is so low that if you don't look carefully, it is impossible to notice it. Looking at Ye Xianming, who was cautious and as if he had found a treasure, Chen Hua asked in confusion, "What kind of elixir is this? The color makes me feel a little unseemly." Although he doesn't understand medicine, he can still feel that the smell of this grass is completely different from that of ordinary elixirs. Ye Xianming squatted down and took out the jade box containing the elixir from the storage bag, while explaining, "I don't know whether the elixir is legitimate or not. The most important thing is whether the person who made the elixir is serious." The big dog took it seriously and said thoughtfully, "Old Yes words are not rude. We are both from Wanjian Mountain. Master, after we encounter danger, we can come to help from thousands of miles away, but that..." While speaking, Ye Xianming had already picked the elixir and put it into the jade box. He raised his head and said, "Dabai, it's not me who speaks for Jian Tianming. Even if I am from Wanjian Mountain, I know that my disciples are in the section. It would be unpleasant if you study here but have the intention of leaving within 100 years. De Go and Chen Hua changed their names to Bai Shi and Bai Hua, and Ye Xianming called them De Bai and Xiao Bai. Chen Hua defended, "Even if he is unhappy, so what? Our master hasn't spoken yet. If we really want to leave, we will definitely say hello to him first." Ye Xianming chuckled, and then stood up. "Tell me, what number is your master's warren? Ba ba ba, what number is your elder?" At this time, the medicine has been picked, and the 3 of them walk side by side, chatting while walking. Chen Hua glared at him angrily. 18. It's that old boy Jian Shiba. Ye Xianming touched his chin and began to recall, and soon a clear figure appeared in his mind, and then he said, "Jian Shiba is a well-known protector of shortcomings in Wanjian Mountain, but he is also somewhat loyal to Wanjian Mountain. He was being used as a weapon." The big dog frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" "It's not interesting, it's just that his brain is a little hard to use. If he concentrates on practicing, his strength will definitely be ranked among the top 10 of the elders in Wanjian Mountain." For De Go and Chen Hua, Ye Xianming, who had been in Yeazhu 500 years ago, is like a living human history record. Of course, it was limited to 500 years ago. However, this just made up for the two people's missing understanding of Yeazhu or Wanjian Mountain. "Listening to what you said, if my master really protects his shortcomings, can we still return to Wanjian Mountain?" Compared with Big Dog, Chen Hua did not have enough confidence to leave Wanjian Mountain and follow Big Dog to go on his own. If Jian Shiba could protect them, he would still be willing to stay. Of course, This idea is because Xianxia is in the middle stage of pill formation, while Jian Tianming is only in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Childish. Ye Xianming glanced at him sideways, and then said, if Jian Tianming returns to Wanjian Mountain, she will be the next mountain owner of Wanjian Mountain. Yes, Xianxia does protect his shortcomings, but the problem is that he is also a foolish and loyal person. From what I see, there is no need for Jian Tianming to take action at all. As long as she opens her mouth, Xianxia will definitely chop off your head and use it as a urinal for Jian Tianming. Chen Hua was about to say something, but the big dog suddenly stopped, and then quickly bent down and hid behind a pile of grass half as tall as a man. Hua Zi, Lao Ye. Stop talking, there is someone ahead. The two of them were shocked, quickly shut up, restrained their breath, and hid behind the big dog. Among the three, the big dog can be said to be the strongest and the most sensitive. After hiding, I heard him whisper, maybe he is a demon. I feel a strange aura, it is very powerful. Magic Wheel Sect. Chen Hua asked subconsciously. It can't be from the Magic Wheel section. Ye Xianming looked into the distance and found that there was only a figure over there, walking slowly towards the side. He also expressed his opinion, people from the Magic Wheel section, they are all crazy, they like to walk on the black light wheel when walking, just like they are afraid that others will not know that they are members of the Magic Wheel sect. The two big dogs were immediately speechless, as if what they said from Ye Xuanming's mouth was that no one was a normal person. But it seemed impossible to refute it, because they had broken through the Zhuhao Mountains, and during their training there, they had indeed killed some disciples in the magic wheel and knew their methods of escaping. Coming, he's coming towards us. Ye Xuanming's voice became trembling. As the strange aura became stronger and stronger, the figures gradually came closer, and the three of them couldn't help but press on their storage bags. Big dog, do you want me to make a sneak attack to attract his attention first, and then you take action? Chen Hua lowered his voice and held back his rapid breathing, because that weird energy was so powerful. After getting close, they didn't dare to show their heads, and they didn't dare to release their spiritual consciousness. They just listened to the footsteps to judge the distance of the other party. This is the only way. The big dog gritted his teeth and said to Ye Xianming, Old Ye, whatever life-saving means you have, please use them later, otherwise we will be buried in the secret realm and used as fertilizer for these elixirs. I'm not crazy, of course I know. Ye Xianming had no intention of joking at all. Although he was a little scared, he responded calmly. Hua Zi, you find an opportunity to strike first, and after attracting that person's attention, Lao Ye and I will make another killing move. After knowing that Ye Xianming would also take action, Big Dog relaxed a little and began to arrange countermeasures. This is one of the routines he and Chen Hua use when traveling. They have such a tacit understanding that there is no need to say anything at all. Chen Hua listened carefully, felt the distance of the footsteps, and then stretched out 3 fingers towards the big dog, which meant that he would take action after 3 breaths. 2. In the blink of an eye, Chen Hua withdrew another finger. 1. After another breath, Chen Hua raised his index finger alone. Then, he suddenly retracted his right hand and pulled out the strange black sword from his waist. De Go and Ye Xianming only felt a flash of black light in front of their eyes, and Chen Hua had already deterred from their left side. It looks like he's trying to sneak up on the incoming person's side. Lao Ye, prepare your methods. As soon as he finished speaking, Ye Xianming took out a thick stack of talismans from his storage bag and looked like he was about to smash them all out. The big dog didn't have time to warn him, he was ready to go, holding his natal magic sword tightly in his right hand. Unexpectedly, 2 exclamations sounded almost simultaneously from outside the haystack. Senior Brother Chen. Junior Brother Joe. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 160. Hearing another familiar voice, Daegu quickly withdrew his hand from the hilt and rushed out. But Ye Xianming was startled by Daegu's action and subconsciously threw out a dozen talismans. Suddenly, these dozens of talismans turned into colorful spells and blasted towards Ergu, who had not yet recovered. The light was everywhere, and these talismans were actually all 5 series: gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. All kinds of spells. Ergu was stunned and almost forgot to dodge. "Junior brother Joe, be careful." As Chen Hua roared in shock, Ergu raised the dark red knife in his hand and drove the spiritual power to resist hastily. Although Meng Wei's life weapon was of the highest grade, Ergu was only in the Qi training stage after all. Even though the skills they practiced were in the same line, the gap in realm made these talismans still severely injure him. Boom boom boom. Big Dog's eyes were about to burst, and he saw Ergo being engulfed by these spells with his own eyes. A sense of helplessness and despair rose from the bottom of his heart. He could feel that the spells transformed by the talismans were all powerful in the foundation building period, and he could also feel that Ergo's realm was only the 8th level of Qi refining. How could he resist this? Ergo! The heart-wrenching roar rose to the sky, and finally made Ye Xianming come back to his senses. He might have accidentally injured him. He also rushed out from behind the haystack quickly, and saw dust and smoke in front of him. Maybe a talisman could still survive, but the atmosphere was too tense just now, and he didn't hold back at all. "Dab, I'm really sorry." Looking at the big dog whose face was about to collapse, Ye Xianming didn't know how to speak. Don't say it, I know you didn't mean it." Big Dog held his round head with both hands, squatted on the ground, and cried like rain. Who could know that after embarking on the immortal path, the first time, Ergu was seriously injured? At that time, I was just like now, helpless. The second time, I almost died, but I didn't know why I survived. I held on until Jianxi came to rescue him and finally brought him back to Wanjian Mountain. But this third time, he couldn't bring himself to blame Ye Xianming at all. He just thought that if he stretched his head out to take a closer look, maybe Ergu would be fine. I can only blame myself for being too weak. Big Dog, I'm not dead." At this time, Ergu's weak voice suddenly came from the dust. Big Dog raised his head suddenly, with an incredible look in his eyes, and then turned to surprise. "Ergu!" He didn't have time to get up. He screamed and rushed in frantically with his hands and feet. He saw Ergu, who was barely breathing, holding the dark red knife in his hand, but with a miserable but happy smile on his face, lying on the grass full of scorch. Just when the big dog was about to pounce on Ergu and hug him tightly, he suddenly remembered something. He turned around and shouted at Ye Xianming, "Old Ye, hurry up! Take out all your family property." Ye Xianming also woke up from his shock, ran over, and took out the bottles and jars in his storage bag. "Brother, I didn't mean it." He also shouted incoherently, poured out a handful of pills from several porcelain bottles, and was about to stuff them into Ergu's mouth. At this time, Chen Hua also came up and shouted anxiously, "Old Ye! He is only in the Qi training stage. Isn't he afraid of bursting his body to death by eating so many pills?" "I, Ye Xianming, am not bragging. The pills I refine can be eaten by any realm." While speaking, Ye Xianming had already stuffed all the pills into Ergu's mouth, and then he smoothed his chest, and all these pills melted into liquid medicine and entered Ergu's lower abdomen. "You guys get out of the way first." Then Ye Xianming said in a deep voice, stretched out his hands at the same time, and his index finger was as fast as lightning, tapping around Ergu's lower abdomen. "Is this the acupuncture method of mortal warriors?" Chen Hua asked in disbelief. Ye Xianming ignored it, but concentrated on it. After an incense stick, he sat down on the ground dejectedly, as if he had collapsed. Dense beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. After taking a breath, he said to Chen Hua, "Mortal martial arts also have their merits. My acupuncture method can help him absorb the power of medicine better." Just like Wanjian Mountain, it was just a gang in the mortal world thousands of years ago, but someone realized the great way from the sword, which made Wanjian Mountain soar into the sky. In short, no matter what you practice, it is a way in the way of heaven, and different paths lead to the same destination. Ye Xianming didn't say anything else, that is, he walked the way of alchemy. But after all, it is an unorthodox way of cultivation, and the difficulty is too high. Hearing Ye Xuanming's words, Chen Hua suddenly remembered the body movement that Zuyun had used before, and smiled and agreed. One of our fellow apprentices in Lingjian sect has also mastered a body movement of mortal warriors who escape, and the name is very interesting. It sounds like a method of cultivating immortals, and it seems to be called Changshengju. The fellow apprentice Chen Hua was talking about was naturally Zuyun. You know, they had been together in the valley for several months at that time, and Chen Hua had seen Zuyun use this body movement. At the beginning, when they left Lingjian sect for the first time to go to the market, they encountered a group of casual cultivators and robbers who were chasing them. At that time, Zuyun relied on this body movement, not only to escape to heaven, but also to kill many strong men in the end. But what he didn't expect was that just the 3 words eternal life secret made Ye Xuanming's pupils shrink sharply. Because the secret of immortality is one of the methods of the 7-star sect. Chen Hua didn't notice the change in Ye Xuanming's expression, but said to himself, thankfully he met a good master. The 7th uncle should have taught him all 7 skills. Uncle 7th. People in the 7-star sect are naturally extremely sensitive to the number 7, not to mention that Chen Hua mentioned 7 skills. Ye Xianming kept an eye on it and asked, pretending to be curious, there are actually 7 kinds of abilities. I wonder which ones they are. Chen Hua didn't know that Ye Xianming was talking nonsense, but because he had placed great trust in him during the chaotic battle with Menghui and Jian Tianming, he said without hesitation, of course it's weapon refining, elixir refining, talismans, brewing, formations, shenfa and, hey, there's something else, I can't remember it. Looking at Chen Hua who racked his brains and couldn't think of anything, Ye Xianming said faintly, planting elixirs. Chen Hua's eyes lit up, he patted his forehead and said, yes, yes, it's farming. Just when Ye Xianming was speechless about the word farm, Chen Hua suddenly looked strange and stared at him and said, that's not right, old Ye, how did you know? The big dog also looked over at this time. Ye Xianming gave a bitter smile and sighed, you know that I am from the 7-star sect, right? The two nodded. Ye Xianming made a surprising statement, the reason why our 7-star sect is named after 7 stars is because of these 7. With that said, he took out another pot of spiritual wine from the storage bag, first pushed it to Chen Hua and said, would you like to try it? Chen Hua looked back at the big dog and then at Ye Xianming. He didn't find it strange at all, because he had asked the 7th uncle where he had gone in the valley. Although Zuyun did not respond directly, he knew from his vague words that Sun Suanhua came from outside and was forced to stay here as a coolie. Since the person is gone, he must have escaped. Opening the seal on the wine cup, Chen Hua took a sip without ceremony. At that time, Zuyun gave him a lot of pills and spiritual stones, and of course also prepared a lot of spiritual wine for him to help him practice. As the wine entered his throat, Chen Hua's eyes lit up instantly. He put down the wine cup and said in surprise, this is the taste. Although he guessed that the 7th uncle had an inescapable relationship with their 7-star sect, at this time Ye Xianming got a definite answer from Chen Hua. Where is Uncle 7th Master now? Is he also in Wanjian Mountain? Ye Xianming asked impatiently. After returning from the Peeper realm, he only knew that the leader of the Zaofu Hall defected and established his own sect and became the Zaofu sect, one of the affiliated sects of Wanjian Mountain. As for the 7-star sect, apart from the ruins of the original sect's location, it has disappeared without a trace, and its fellow sect has not been found at all. Lao Yet. After noticing that the two dogs had fallen into a deep sleep, their breathing gradually stabilized, and there was no longer any fear for their lives, the big dog also stood up. You mean, that the 7th master is your fellow disciple? Ye Xianming said excitedly, nonsense. These 7 skills are exactly the same, and no matter which method our 7-star sect uses, it is unique in Yeazhu. I am only proficient in Dan Dao, and I also dabble in other methods, but I haven't learned anything about weapon refining and formations at all. If I can find my fellow sect, my 7-star sect will hopefully be restored, and I will no longer be afraid of losing the inheritance. Originally, Ye Xianming had given up the idea and planned to return to the Peepa realm. The spiritual power there is more intense than that of the entire Ya realm, and there are countless places where you can find treasures. He can use his alchemy method to exchange for more precious elixirs. Thereby, he can improve his realm through alchemy and enlightenment, and then return to Yeazhu to revive the 7-star sect after completing the alchemy stage. But now, with a fellow disciple who has mastered the 7 skills, he can continue to pass them on. How can he not be excited? This, old Ye, please forgive me. Chen Hua shook his head and said, first of all, the 7th uncle is not in Wanjian Mountain, but the senior uncle of our Yunzhou Lingjian sect. We concealed it before, so it doesn't count as lying to you. Ye Xianming interrupted anxiously, it's okay. When we get out of the secret realm, we will go to Yunzhou together. I will be very grateful to old Ye after we find the 7th uncle. He has decided that when the time comes, each person will receive a longevity pill. Don't worry, Chen Hua sighed helplessly, that 7th uncle has already left Lingjian sect, at least for more than 10 years. As for where he went, I don't know, maybe my senior brother can know. Hearing this, Ye Xianming looked disappointed, but suddenly said in shock, wait a minute, you just said that the senior brother is the direct disciple of the 7th uncle. Thinking of this, Ye Xianming was filled with excitement. Even if the 7th uncle is missing, if he is found, the inheritance can still be continued. Chen Hua shrugged and said even more helplessly, sorry, I also want to find that brother, but unfortunately I don't know where he is. I only know that he has also come to Yeazhu. Ye Xianming felt as if he had been poured cold water on him. He felt as if he was being taken flying by a supreme power, suddenly rising to the clouds and suddenly falling to the bottom of the valley. Although Yunzhou is big, after all, if you are in the foundation building period, you will not feel any pressure at all when looking for someone in the past. But in Yeazhu, to be honest, he didn't even dare to fly. If you encounter a pill-forming period during the flight and feel unhappy, you can slap it off. Ye Xianming fell silent immediately, and Chen Hua and Big Dog also became quiet and stopped making any sound. In the distance, Meng Wei, who was rapidly chasing Mu Qingxin, or rather chasing the beam of light, looked extremely gloomy. Just now, she felt as if her natal sword was being bombarded by dozens of foundation building people. Originally, she planned to go back immediately. Although the master was important, if her natal magic sword was destroyed, she would be seriously injured immediately. Not to mention that the rest of the foundation establishment stages are also chasing this way, and there is also Jian Tianming who is eyeing the reincarnation. Don't talk about looking for the master then, you might even end up here. Unexpectedly, the natal sword only suffered one round of attacks and then suddenly stopped moving. After carefully feeling it, although I had doubts in my heart, I had to choose to believe that Ergu had escaped alive. Usually when Ergu is in front of her, although he is taciturn and doesn't like to talk, he looks like an honest person. But Meng Wei feels that honest people are the most terrifying. Especially after knowing Ergu's experience before meeting him after going to Yeazhu. I hope you're okay. Praying in his heart, Meng Wei secretly swore, "I'll help you get rid of this bad breath after I'm done with the matter here. I'll save that little brat Zuyun from blaming me." Just distracted for a moment, Meng Wei suddenly discovered that the light pillar had lost its trace. He couldn't help but tighten his pretty face, and quickly released his spiritual consciousness and spread it around. However, she didn't notice anything unusual. Instead, she saw Mu Qingxin sitting on the back of a dragon-headed monster, running wildly in the other direction. "I didn't see it, but she must have seen it. Chase him first." Meng Wei did not hesitate and changed the direction, but slowed down slightly. At this moment, Meng Wei discovered that Mu Qingxin also suddenly disappeared from her sight. While she was slightly stunned, her eyes flashed and she appeared in another space. Array. Meng Wei's breathing became rapid as he looked at a simple courtyard that appeared not far away and was made entirely of wood. It clearly showed traces of man-made life. At the same time, Mu Qingxin also stopped. She didn't know whether it was because she didn't dare to step forward rashly, or because the demon beast under her seat instinctively felt the crisis.